You're listening to the winning literary show, Off the Shelf Books Talk Radio, live with host Denise Turney, author of the books Long Walk Up, Portia, Love Pour Over Me, Spiral, Love Has Many Faces, and Rosetta's Great Hope. Turn up your dial and get ready for a blast of feature author interviews, 411 on book festivals, writing conferences, and so much more. Ready? Let's go.
Okay. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive, and that quote is attributed to John Green, and I think that is the key to why we are here in this world. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive, and we get countless opportunities to forgive and not hold on to things and let go, and that could be a key reason why we're here. Again, that's attributed to John Green. And I want to welcome you to today's Off the Shelf show. And not only do we have a awesome author on deck to introduce to you, some of you may have heard her when she was on Off the Shelf Books before, so you'll be getting a double treat. But up to others, it'll be the first time you've heard from her. So we'll introduce her shortly. But another thing about it is it's a fabulous autumn Saturday here, and I truly thank the creator for Jamaica not being hit any harder. They were hit hard for sure than they were. So, in prayers to people in Jamaica, and that we do what we can to help them. But this is also, and I'm shifting gears, the first day in November, and this every day is a day we won't see again. November the 1st, 2025, and the leaves on the tree outside my window, they are all starting to change. I love those autumn colors. So I want to welcome you to the November the 1st. If you're in the United States, depending on where you live, tomorrow is daylight savings time ends. So you got to fall back an hour on your clock, get an extra hour of sleep. So I would welcome again to this November the 1st, Off the Shelf. And this author is kicking us off for this month. Before we introduce you to our guest for today, I do encourage you to hop over to my official website, and it's chistel.com, CHISTELL.com, chistel.com. You can read free excerpts of my latest mystery, The Wooten State Forest Mystery. It's in paperback and ebook. You can pick up copies there, but you can also read free excerpts from that and any of my other books, and subscribe to the Book Lovers Haven, which is a free literary newsletter where I focus on different things in the writing jobs, book conferences, and there's some feature author interviews, just all things books, all things story, all things story. So again, that's chistel.com, CHISTELL.com. And now, a special time has arrived. Drum roll, drum roll. Let us go and meet this morning's special Off the Shelf Books guest. And this morning's guest is Karen E. Osborne. And there's two Karens Osbornes out there. This one has an E in her name, Karen E. Osborne. And Karen has been an avid lover of stories since she was a little girl. And she started writing when she was 12 years old. So she's been at this for a minute. But her career in academia, and being a wife and mom, and she also operated the Osborne Consulting and Training Firm, it saw her writings, start to take a backstage. So she got back into it though. She was traveling when she wrote the first draft of Getting It Right. And next came her books Tangled Lies, Reckonings, True Grace, and her latest book, Justice for Emerson, which we're going to talk about today. And it was published earlier this year. I encourage you to check Karen E. Osborne and her books out online at KarenEosborne.com. And that's spelled KareneOsborne.com. And again, KareneOsborne.com. You can, the wonderful thing about Off the Shelf Books, you can hop over to her website and check out the covers of her books, etc., even as you listen to her give this interview today. We are absolutely honored to have you back, Miss Karen E. Osborne, and we welcome you to Off the Shelf Books.
Thank you so, so much for having me back. I'm so excited. And I also realized that I need to have you as a guest on my podcast. So I'm going to follow up with you after this because I would love to return the favor and have you on my weekly podcast. What are you reading? What are you writing?
Okay, well, thank you. Would love to be on, and it's again a pleasure to have you here with us again. But some of our listeners may not have heard you when you were on before. So for those who didn't catch your January show, can you please, Karen, tell us where you grew up and what life was like for you growing up?
I grew up, thank you. You know, you talked about forgiveness before, and that's a huge, huge value for me in my life. I grew up in the Bronx at in a two-family house, you know, in a working class neighborhood. Almost everybody were immigrants, you know, people from the Caribbean mostly, and and so everybody was your mama, everyone was your daddy on the block, and but I didn't have the best parents in the world. But I when I learned to forgive them, that's what freed me. It freed me to be a better person. It freed me to be a better wife, a better mother, just by the power of forgiving. And so I love that you started the podcast talking about that. And that's a theme in almost all of, not almost, that is a theme in all five of my books.
Oh
Forgiveness
wow.
is really there. And I didn't get to confront my parents. I didn't forgive them until after they were dead, but that still worked. That
There
still
you
worked.
go.
Got on my knees, spoke to them, forgave them.
Okay. Yes. Yes. And we all need for ourselves, and then it just does release us. Now, when you were a little girl, what did you dream of becoming when you grew up, Karen? What did you want to
I
be?
I was going to be a writer in my
Oh,
in my high school yearbook. I graduated when I was 16. I just turned 16, and in my yearbook it said ambition and the word writer.
oh,
It was always something that just it hungered inside of me. But you know, I was married at 20. I had my babies right away, two kids, and you know, I'd write some bad poetry. I'd write some bad short stories, but I didn't have time to work on my craft. I didn't have time to develop into a writer that somebody wanted to read. You know, so I journaled, but you know, raising kids, then working, then having really big jobs. We were an international firm. We traveled the world. It just made the writing fall back.
mm.
Yeah.
Well, good that you got into it. Where do you think your love for reading and writing books even came from?
So I love that question. Nobody is all bad or all good in my experience. And that's what I do, make sure my characters are not all bad or all good. And so my dad wasn't the best dad in the world, but what he gave me, he was smart. He was very, very smart and educated. And so he was the only person that we knew who had a college degree. Because again, I said these were all immigrants, you know, who had just come to this country. All their children ended up with degrees, but they didn't have them. So my dad was the only one we knew in the neighborhood who graduated from a university. And he loved to read and he loved to write. And I would go to the
Oh,
library every week and I would borrow 7 books. That was all you were allowed to borrow. And then every week I'd take the 7 back and borrow 7 more. But on Christmas, my dad would buy me books that I could own. And he introduced me to all the great writers. He had me reading books far above my age, you know, what was probably appropriate for my age. But I treasured those books and I read them and reread them and I owned them. So he just really instilled in me a passion for reading. And then he was a writer, he wrote poetry. and as did his father. And so that, and as now my son is a published author,
Okay.
and my grandson is one of my oldest grandson is very, he's written several novels already. Yeah, so like it just passed right on through the family, and I'm so grateful for that. Nobody's all bad. He did some
Okay.
really good things.
Now you worked in academia, and I want to touch on this because as an author, there's I think it's Vanessa Miller. She posted on one of her social media she got accepted into a master's writing program. So when I think Toni Morrison taught, George Carl Oates taught at Princeton University. Uh, when I think of academia, I always think it could have a significant impact on a person's writing. So, what role did you feel when you actually were working in academia? What were you doing?
So my first job in academia, in the early parts of my career, I worked in the development department, and we raised the money for the faculty and the students. Uh, we raised millions and millions of dollars to help uh, the academics have the things they needed. My first job was at a technical university, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and so they needed lots of money for research and doing all the things that help America advance and the world advance. So that was cool because I got to work with lots and lots of faculty members. I got to work with 9 presidents over the course of my career.
Wow.
But then later, when I was working as the owner of our company, my husband and I were in business together. I was an adjunct faculty member at Johns Hopkins University for 7 years, and
Mm,
that taught me a lot too about people, about clarity of communication. You know, you're trying to inspire students to embrace something, to understand it, to want to use it. So teaching is a wonderful way. Being taught is great, and I took lots and lots of writing classes. Teaching is also an amazing way to learn because you have to learn before you can teach.
yes, yeah. I was going to ask you how did working in academia influence your writing, but you were more on I'm assuming grants, more the sales side of it
Yeah, the
with
administer
working.
yes. Yeah. We
Now,
weren't doing yeah, we were doing grants, and we were doing a major gift fundraising from individuals, and which is really where most of the money comes from in America. It's from people.
and that I would imagine we could touch on this later would influence your book marketing. Could have some influence on your book marketing, that side of it, and not just the creating a book itself or a manuscript. Now,
Hmm.
Karen, why did you decide to create your new novel, Justice for Emerson, with a dual timeline?
I had so much fun writing this book. I had such a blast writing this book. So this is the first time that my protagonist she's the CEO of a not-for-profit. And that's where I spent my whole career, helping universities, hospitals, and not-for-profits. And Arya is 50 years old, and she is a widow. Her husband died 2 years earlier, so a young, young widow. And she has a son at Cornell University, where my son went. And he's a freshman there in the story. And I really wanted to highlight, and I care deeply, deeply about the plight of the unhoused in this country. And I like to include in my stories, even though this is a page turning murder mystery, I like to always lift up a social issue in all of my stories. And so I had an opportunity to give her a not for profit that was helping the unhoused, the hungry, people who were living in their cars, people who were trying to get ahead. And that was her calling to do this work. And then my husband is a Vietnam vet. And I decided to have the person who's murdered. I love my husband. We've been married 57 years. So don't think that this is about me trying to murder my husband. But I had Emerson be a 77-year-old Vietnam vet who she finds, and he's a volunteer, a beloved volunteer at her not-for-profit. And in the first pages of the story, she finds him murdered in her
Oh,
basement,
wow.
and the murderer sees her, and she sees the murderer. Where the dual timeline comes in, so during present day, she is trying to solve the murder, trying to keep her family safe. There are lots of characters helping her, including a love interest who is all, the story is going fast, fast, fast as she's trying to figure out and keep her not-for-profit doors open and figure out who murdered and working with the police and everything. But the dual timeline, we meet Emerson, the 77-year-old who's dead, when he's 20 years old in
Ah,
1968, on his way to Vietnam on the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated.
oh,
And his life goes along in this dual timeline, but by decades. The current day is by days. It takes place over like 2 weeks, but the dual timeline takes us from 1968 to 2025. And how did he end up in this basement? And the
oh,
things that happened back then that had an impact on what happened to him. And so there's lots of twists and turns and bad guys. And my husband asked me about he would read, as I'm writing, he would read for me and give me feedback. And about 3/4 of the way through, he said, Karen, like, oh my gosh, like who killed Emerson? You got so many voices here. And I said, I don't know. He hasn't told me yet. I know he's going to tell me,
wow.
but I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
It was great fun. I loved writing Justice for Emerson. And husband Bob, gave me lots of background from his time in Vietnam and, his time coming back to America that hated the soldiers and airmen and Marines
Yeah,
who came back. They weren't revered back then.
yeah,
They
yeah,
were called baby killers
yeah.
and all that took a toll on Emerson.
Now, how does he again when it starts? He's on his way, so you don't show his childhood or anything. He's on his way. He's in his 20s. He's on his way to Vietnam. Dr. King had just been assassinated. This is where the story opens, right?
With the dual timeline. So the story opens with his murder, and then the dual timeline picks up when he's 20. But you do meet his parents. You do meet and learn some of how he was raised. You meet his brother. So it's just like you're meeting Arya at 50, but you do find out about her past. You do find out, you meet her parents, you meet her sister,
Okay.
um, through flashbacks.
Now you said you would like to touch on themes. Forgiveness is a theme that shows up in your books, and then the unhoused it shows up. Is there any other theme that shows up in Justice for Emerson?
Yes, so addiction.
Oh,
And people have told me I'm just so grateful how many people have told me how well, how non judgmental the writing is, how I'm telling the story without judgment. I'm telling the story with honesty. So we see all his flaws. So no judgment, but also no prettying it up. You know, here it is. Here's what happened. Here's how he responded. And so many people just fell in love with Emerson, even though they knew that he dies because he's dead when the story opens. They were ending up, rooting for him,
oh yeah,
hoping
yeah,
that
yeah.
things would work out for Emerson, because I really tried to write him with honesty and like I said, no judgment.
What inspired you to actually why this story? What pulled you toward this story?
Characters are always what starts every story for me. Some people, it's the plot and they plot it all out. Clearly, I told you I didn't know who the murderer was, 3/4 of the way through. So clearly, I'm not a plotter. but so characters speak to me and they want me to write their story. Arya is 5'2". She has a chip on her shoulder because she thinks that she's so short that men don't take her seriously in a place of authority. She's a black woman, so she feels that being short and black and young in a world where people are older and white and tall and male, that she has to kind of prove herself. And I know Arya. I've known lots of people like that. And Arya just started talking to me. She wanted me to tell her story.
Mm.
And she's got this man who's in love with her. And she feels like he's the wrong guy. He's
Oh,
too
wow.
tall and he's too rich and he's too tall, too rich, too young. He's 40 years old, 10 years younger than she is. He's too white. She's black and he's white. And it's too soon because she
Mm.
still feels married to her deceased husband. So she was the
Wow.
one who wanted me to tell her story. And then I've been listening to my husband's stories about, we've been friends since we were 12 and 13 years old. So I lived through his Vietnam
Ah,
experience and his
right.
service. He's told me so many amazing stories. So I always try to put a little of my Bob into my books because he's such a good guy.
Oh,
So Emerson, now Bob wasn't addicted or anything, but I know enough people who were. I have a relative who went through this, suffered through this.
mm.
Anyway, so it was just the characters talk to me and they want me to tell their story, and then I have to figure out what the plot is.
Oh my God. Can you give us a little bit, a brief bio on Emerson? You did talk about him a little bit, but if you had to give a bio or introduce him to somebody who you really wanted to get to know him really well, but so to help listeners feel closer to the character Emerson.
Yeah, so Emerson at 77 is very different from Emerson at 20. At 20, he was a guy who thought he was doing the right thing. The draft was, you got drafted into the army, and he didn't want to get drafted into the army, but he did want to do his service. So he volunteered into the Air Force. So from the very beginning, and he came from good parents, loving parents, and he wanted to do what was right. But when Martin Luther King was killed on Emerson's way to Vietnam, he started questioning this country that he loved. He started
Mm,
questioning, like, why am I going off to kill people that didn't do anything to me? And people are murdering this good man, this good black
mm-hmm,
man. And there's so much, racism and hate. And so he was at a point in his life when he was 20 that he was questioning where he belonged and what did he believe and how should he behave. And he meets a fellow airman who becomes his best buddy. And unfortunately, his best buddy has some bad instincts. And so a lot of things that he got caught up in as a result of the Vietnam War and as a result of other tragedies that you'll read about, he lost his way.
mm,
He loved a woman very much, and she had a son. And he tried very hard to be a good dad to this boy. But the addiction is a powerful force, and it just had a grip on him. Um,
mm.
that in the service actually helped men become alcoholics. You
Yeah,
could buy a bottle of scotch at the commissary for $1.25.
yeah.
So there was so many, and then when they came home, they weren't treated like heroes, and all of that ate at him. But he finds his way by the end back to the good person. So when you meet him, the person who's dead, he was a wonderful volunteer. He was a good person. He got back to himself.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the past caught up with him.
Wow. Can you introduce? We told us a little about Arya. She's 50, widow. She has a son, and she's now thinking she got remarried too soon, and maybe to the wrong guy. How long have she and Jax been married? And can you introduce us to Jax and let us know what is Jax and Arya's? What's their family background, and what are their personalities like? What drives each of them?
So Jax is not her. She's not married to Jax. Jax likes her. I mean, he is in love with her. He's a volunteer. He's 6'2". He's um, he's a very generous man. So he is one of her volunteers and one of her top donors, and he has fallen hard for her.
Mm,
And she is, she feels like she's still married to her husband,
hmm.
but there's something tugging at her. She wants to be held again and loved again. She had a wonderful marriage, and she just misses, being loved. And but she's thinking, oh my gosh, like, he's so tall. How would a 5'2" person make love with a 6'2" person? What does he do? Lift you up? He has to hold you? What, she's just a mess. She's so worried about it. And then this murder comes in. But Jax is just, he's a brave man. He cares about her. He helps her hunt down, figure out who's doing this. He tries to protect her.
Ah,
He's a really sweet, sweet guy, and we're rooting for them. We're hoping. I won't tell you what
okay.
happens, but we are really rooting for Jax and Arya to find each other.
Ah, interesting. Interesting. Now, who's late? Oh, what's Jax? Oh, so Jack's just a nice guy. He's a donor,
Yes, he
and
comes
he's
from money, but he also made money. He made lots of money. He runs a cybersecurity firm with his two brothers. And he's just a hardworking, smart. He's a tech guy, so he's kind of quiet. He's more comfortable with technology than he is with people, so he's not always sure if he's saying the right thing. But his brother Stephen is the one who's like the salesman, the marketing guy, and then his brother Charles is the one who runs the operations guy. But Jax is in charge of all the technology, all of the cybersecurity, um, back of the house kinds of stuff. So he's, in his black t-shirt, but he volunteers. He didn't volunteer because he fell for Aria. He was volunteering when she became the CEO, and he fell in love with her while he was already volunteering. So he's a generous man. And
oh,
yeah, and his
okay.
parent he comes from, people come from privilege, but doesn't mean they come from good families.
Yeah.
So he came from privilege, but not good families.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, who's Lacey? I'm loving these characters, and this is what you said this at the start of the show. This is what draws a lot of readers in. Even if you have an amazing plot, if when you think of a movie series or a TV series or even a book series, if the reader doesn't care about the character, you can have an amazing plot. Although plot is important, but they might not stick around. They have to care about the character. Now, so that said, who is Lacey? What she like? And what's Lacey's relationship to Jax and Arya?
So Lacey is one of Arya's two besties.
Oh,
She
okay,
has Lacey is and Joy is her other one, and the three of them grew up together,
okay.
and they are tight as can be. And so Arya hired Lacey to be, and I told you that I spent my career in philanthropy,
Hmm.
and Lacey is her fundraiser. Her main,
Oh,
she
okay.
raises, she hires her, and Lacey is a truth teller. Lacey's the one, the friend that says to you, "Girl, you got to clean this up. You got to clean up this act. What's wrong with you?" So Lacey is she's very lovely. She does her job really well, and she's very loyal to Arya. And then Joy is a pastor, and she's Arya's pastor. And so
Oh,
sometimes Arya and they're all the same age. They all went to college together. They're good friends. So sometimes Arya can talk about things to Lacey that she doesn't feel comfortable talking
ah,
to her pastor about. And that's the other thing that Lacey tells her. You can talk to Joy about anything. I know, but
Ah,
she's not going to judge you. So they are three best friends because everybody needs best friends, right?
yes, I agree.
How do we
I
get
agree.
through life without our besties?
Now, last question on characters. Are Xander and Darcy married? And what's their relationship? And how do they fit into the story? Justice for Emerson.
So Xander is Arya's 18-year-old son, and
Okay.
he is away at college, and he meets this woman who is a piece of work. There, she runs a not-for-profit, and he's sort of like he's having sex for the first time in his life. And and when you're 18, 19 years old and you're a male, sex is like a driving force. And and she's older, she's a couple of years older than he is. And she seems more knowledgeable. And he loves that she's running this not-for-profit and she's an activist. So she's getting, the police are involved because she's doing actions out in the street, fighting for the people. And he's gotten all caught up and he's dropped out of, he's not showing up for class. And
Oh,
Cornell
wow.
University is like super expensive. And Arya is frantic. And then the bad guy threatens her family. And so she and Jax go to Cornell to find him and to protect him. And they meet Darcy. And she is a character that you're thinking like, whoa. She
Okay.
is a lot. She is a lot. And Arya
Ah,
wants him just to leave her. And like, who is this woman? And why
ah.
is she leading you around? But she, you know, things evolve. Things evolve through the book. But that's who they are.
These characters sound very intriguing. And the thing in my mind that's intriguing is how will all these characters with these different strong personalities interact with each other to help the outcome of the story happen.
And
Now, how
that's
much
where all the
of
tension comes. That's where
yes,
all the tension comes.
these characters. Now, how much of the story is set in 1968 and versus how much is set in 2025?
I would say it's about 50-50.
Okay.
I haven't counted the chapters to see, but we go back and forth. So we're in Arya's point of view during the present day, but in Emerson's story, we change points of view because you get to meet some of the bad guys. You get to
Let me
meet
ask.
we haven't even talked about the bad guys. So you get to meet a lot of the bad guys over time in Emerson's story, and you're thinking, is one of them, the killer? And then you meet some bad guys in present day as well. So there's quite a few. Again, I try to make my characters whole people, so the bad guys are not pure evil. They're whole human beings that have some good qualities, but lots of bad qualities, and they're present day and dual timeline bad guys to choose from. Like, who killed Emerson and why?
Yeah. Now, when the reader's reading this with the dual timeline, are you doing this by chapter? So in one chapter we hear Emerson from Emerson's perspective. In another chapter we hear Arya. How are you pulling that, separating those two perspectives?
Yeah, and so whenever I change point of view, it's a new chapter.
Okay.
And so it's not one for one, because I need the reader to really understand Arya and care about her. So the first couple of chapters are all Arya in
Okay.
her
Okay.
in her point of view, and then you meet Emerson, and then you meet Jax, and then you meet one of the bad guys, and it goes. But when I change point of view, it's a new chapter.
Okay.
So you
So,
always know whose head you're in. You always know by the opening line of that chapter, whatever chapter it is. Uh, so Arya is speaking in the first person. So she says, "Breathing often is difficult, but today I struggled more than usual." That's the opening line for Arya. And then when you're meeting Jax, it's in his voice, uh, and you always know where you are. You never lose where you are.
okay. Now, I love the book cover. Who designed the cover, and did you have any input on that cover design?
Yes. So my publisher does. They have a design department, and they ask me as the author, "Do I have any ideas? Is there anything that you want me to work on? Otherwise, they read the book, and they come up with what they think is a good design." And I just loved this cover. I wanted this beautiful brown skinned young woman just looking over her shoulder at the dangers and the complications behind her, but not with fear. I wanted you to see her concern. I wanted you to see, kind of what she's thinking, but see that she's a strong Black woman. And so they came up with the cover. You go back and forth, and they send it to you, and I send it back. And we have a wonderful publisher, Black Rose Writing, out of Texas. It's a small
Okay.
press. I'm traditionally published. It's a small press, and they do a good job with covers.
Okay. What have readers been saying about Justice for Emerson?
Oh, thank you. That is such an awesome question. Thank you. Thank you. So, so it has been really good. Here's one. Osborne delivers a heart-pounding whodunit murder mystery.
Okay.
Emerson's Vietnam era dual timeline will resonate with readers familiar with characters like Harry Bosch. Here's another one. Part crime thriller, part romance, and part historical fiction. Justice for Emerson is a fast-paced page-turner. Osborne paints a complex character in Arya, one who could be decisive and indecisive, confident and full of self-doubt, reticent and strong simultaneously. These complex women characters are Osborne's forte.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And are there plans to turn Justice for Emerson into a series?
So I would really like to write another book about Arya and Jax, and them getting themselves into more, because his cybersecurity lends itself to some really nice storylines in today's world. So I think I would very much, and the whole issue of the unhoused and the poor and the way the world is treating us, treating people right now. I could see a really nice sequel, but I've already written, I'm already like halfway through my next book and writing it, and it's a sequel to my first book, Getting It Right. Uh, I'm having a good time writing about that. So that's coming out next year.
All kind of segues into my next question. I was going to touch on a few of your other stories before we close today. Can you give off the shelf listeners a brief overview of your first novel, Getting It Right?
So, Getting It Right is a story of two young women. They're both 30 years old. One is mixed race and one is white. One grew up in abusive foster care, the other grew up in dysfunctional privilege. And on the opening scene of the book, it turns out that the white girl's father, Alex's father, calls her to his bedside and tells her that before he dies, he had a massive heart attack. He wants her to find the child he abandoned, and
Oh,
that's Kara.
oh
And
wow.
so he has Alex, and she says, you can hire a private detective. He says, no, I need you to find her so that she wants to come to me. I know you can I'm counting on you, Alex. Poor Alex. She didn't even know she had a half sister, much less that her
Mm,
half sister was Black. And then she finds out that they're both the same age. So he fathered
Oh,
His white daughter
yeah.
and his black daughter the same year. Uh, so we meet Kara, and Kara's got all kinds of issues because of her background, and she picks the wrong men, and she's now picked once again the wrong man who's got her into all kinds of trouble. And then Alex is trying to keep her mother sane, and her father is dying, and her other two sisters. And it takes place over 2 weeks as Alex tracks down Kara, and then what happens when they find each other.
Oh my gosh. Now, not giving the story away, just a little hint of it. Why does Kara's father want her to find? Why does Alex, excuse me, father want her to find Kara?
His daughter, his half daughter, because he knows he's about to meet his maker, and he deserted that child when
Oh.
she was 2 years old.
Was he in Alex's life? Was he active or no?
Yes, he was a devoted father to his three
Oh.
daughters, his three white daughters, and but he always cheated on his wife, Judy. He always cheated on her. And so who knows with the sequel, there may be other half sisters someplace out there. But he only knew about Kara, and he wanted to set things straight before he died.
Now
And Alex,
you're currently writing the sequel, correct?
correct.
How far along are you, and can you give us just a brief insight into what is going to? Oh, wait, in the sequel or in the first book, does Alex find Kara?
Yes. And what happens when they find each other? There's a whole lot of drama as they find each other, because Kara's caught up in all of this stuff with this married man, and he's in trouble, and there's the FBI and insider trading, and then Alex is thinking that Kara would be grateful, you know. But Kara's
Mm,
like, where the hell have you guys been? Where have you been?
yeah.
Because she had been abused badly as a young child. So yes, there's
What was
lots of things.
Kara's mother doing? What did her
Oh, she
mother?
died. Her mom died. And Alex is like stunned. You mean you left this child? You find out that her mother's dead, and your answer is to put her up for adoption, and you don't even find out if she's adopted. I mean, she's so mad. Alex is so mad at her father when she finds out all the things that happened to Kara. Uh, and Kara's just all her life longing for her family to come rescue her. And when they finally show up at 30, she's angry.
Yeah.
She's
No,
hurt and angry. But there's a wonderful woman in the story, Mrs. E. And Mrs. E is a 70-year-old Black woman, and she is like a mother figure to Kara and to Danny. Danny, who is a police officer, and they live in Mrs. E's brownstone in Harlem. And so we have this wise Christian woman, kind of holding things together and helping Alex figure things out, and helping Kara figure things out, and helping Danny. And I love Mrs. E. She's you know, just a smart, mature woman who's seen it all, has her own story, has her own history, and, her life hasn't been perfect, but she is just the person that Kara needs right now. And Alex also ends up learning a lot from Mrs. E.
how did Kara and Kara's mother and father, Alex's father, how did they even meet? They sound like they were on two different sides of the track. That's what I was asking about her mother. Was she just somebody he met at a club, or 'cause they don't sound nothing alike to me?
They're
Kara's
not.
mother and her father. How did those two meet?
So they met they lived in DC at the time, and the father, his name is Worth Lawrence. Worth was big in politics. He was a donor to different politicians. He was a wheeler dealer, and he met this beautiful young Black woman at this event, and she fell hard for him, and he was a philanderer. So they hooked up, and
Mm.
and she got pregnant, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it. That wasn't his plan. He'd visit a couple of times, and she had hope. Mom had hope that things might work, but he was married. He had 3 kids. He's white and rich, and this young Black woman was just supposed to be a fling, and unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, she got pregnant, and she was not having an abortion. She just said, no, I'm not going to do that. And so she gave birth to Kara, and Worth disappeared from her life.
So very, very, this is very interesting. And he didn't really. He must be kind of cold. He's a devoted father to Alex and his other kids, but he knows he's got this little girl, the child out here. He doesn't give 2 cents about.
He
It
didn't
seems until he's getting ready
to
to
die.
pass away. Is he really a caring, loving, or
You
how
kind
can
of
you
find
describe?
out Alex. You meet him kind of through Alex's eyes, and she thinks everything that's wrong with the marriage is her mother's fault because her mother is such a piece of work. But more and more as the story goes on, Alex starts to learn about his true nature and his true
Oh,
character. And she loved her father so much, but as the story evolves, she figures out that she didn't have the best dad. That
oh,
everything wasn't her mother's fault, even though her mother is really crazy. But, you know, it was so easy just to blame her mom
yeah. Now,
for
I think I asked you this, but can you give us a glimpse into the sequel?
the sequel. So it's 8 months later after the death. The book ends with the death of Worth and the funeral of Worth. That's how the story ends. And I don't want to tell you what happens there because it's, the end of the story. But now we're 8 months later. It's December, and and Alex is getting married, and she convinced Kara to please, please be in her wedding. They had been working on their relationship over the 8 months and mending fences. And, you know, Alex really cares about Kara, and Kara is forgiving. She's working on forgiveness. And it wasn't Alex that hurt her, right? It was the father, not Alex. And so Kara's working through her forgiveness. And as the story opens, Alex is abducted
Oh,
off the
wow.
streets during a run, snatched.
Wow. Okay, you
Meanwhile,
like a.
meanwhile, Kara's story that's going along is Kara's decided that she wants to adopt 2 children out of foster care,
Oh, yeah.
and it turns out, and she believes that the mother is not in their life from everything she could tell. But when the city notifies Yaz, who's the young mother of these 2 babies, these 2 kids, Yaz thinks that maybe she wants to be a mother. And so,
Oh,
so there's and the kids are 3 and 4 years old, and so Kara has all kinds of mixed feelings because she had wanted, people to come find her, and
yes.
should I keep these kids from their mother? On the other
Mm.
hand, Yaz, who we meet Yaz, and Yaz is a flawed woman, young woman, but she's not evil. We find out why she gave up her kids and what happened, and how Yaz is thinking about things. So everything is complicated, complicated.
Oh, yes. I like how your characters are very multifaceted. I love that. They're complex characters, and it helps to drive a story forward. Now, talking about characterization, driving a story forward, what writing process do you follow, Karen? Do you use outlines, character sketches? How do you start to shape out a story?
It's all in my head. They talk to me, talk to me, talk to me, and then I have to run and write. I hear a line someplace, somebody says something, and I think, oh, that would be perfect. I jot it down in my notebook,
Mm-hmm.
It's a very iterative process. I'm not a plotter. I don't plan out everything. I don't know exactly how the story's going to end. It you know it I try to write every day, and at least my son said to me, "Mom, if you just carve out 15 minutes every day, you'll be surprised how much you'll get done." And so I do
Mm-hmm.
try to commit at least 15 minutes, but I end up writing for an hour or 2 hours.
Okay.
I have so many other things in my life. I mean, I have a very um, strong volunteer life and church life, and you know, so I'm very busy. But
Mm-hmm.
I do try to carve out time for writing all the time. And the story just, the characters tell me. Like when I started writing Yaz's story, the mother of the two little ones, at first she was, in my mind, she grew up in a middle class family. And then Yaz said to me, if my mother had money, she wouldn't have let me put these kids up for adoption. My mother
Mm.
doesn't have any money. I thought, oh, you're right. You're right.
Okay.
So they talk to me and I do what they tell me.
Interesting. Now, please share 3 to 4 steps you found to be effective at getting the word out about your books.
So I am on social media. I have my Facebook page is Karen E. Osborne, author, on Facebook, and I post just about every day. I post not just things about my books, but I post about books, like you do. That
Hmm.
it's not just about you; it's about helping other authors and supporting other authors. So I also post. I have my weekly show where I feature other authors. And I'm on Instagram, Karen E. Osborne author. I'm on LinkedIn, Karen E. Osborne. And I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, Karen E. Osborne. So I use all of the social media. I do book events, like I'm going to one today. I'm on this podcast. Thank you, thank you. And I am going to a book event here in town. I live in Florida, and so it's
Okay.
a big book event from 4 to 10. And then I'm going to be in New York the next week at a
Okay.
library. It's hard. Getting the word out is hard.
Yeah, but it's consistency. I think over time, because things have really changed since I entered. I published my first novel, Portia, in 1998, 97 or 98, and ebooks weren't even a thing back then. So
Mm.
it's really, really changed, and technology continues to evolve and has since probably humans have been on this planet. So I don't see that changing. You have to have something that's consistent. It's some branding, something like that's why businesses I think use logos. There's something that even when everything else is changing, it's still the same. And so that yeah, I think that's a big part of it too. Building that it could be just 1 or 2 things that are they just go unchanged while everything else is changing. Um,
I agree
so
with that so much, Denise. My one thing is I tried to think, since I don't write series, all my books have been standalone. This is the first time I'm writing a sequel to a book. And people say, oh, they're all like different. I say, well, the one strong thread through every book is a strong woman overcoming unbelievable odds. Every book,
mm,
I have a strong woman overcoming unbelievable odds. Every book, there is a theme of forgiveness and redemption.
mm,
Every book, there is friendship. Every one of my strong female characters has somebody in their life that's on their side no matter what. That
yes,
that
yes,
best bud, that person, and because I've been blessed with, my best friend that we met at 12 years old. My husband met
wow.
when I was 13, and he's a best friend. And my girlfriend I met at 12 years old, and here we are, 77 years
Oh
old.
my goodness, yes,
And we're still besties. We're still
yes.
supporting each other. So I try to make sure that my strong female characters who have so many things just thrown at them, have that person standing next to them, that truth teller, that support you no matter what, but I am going to tell you the truth. Always there. And I try to make those best friends different.
Yes.
So in each book, it's a different person, a cool character, an interesting character. But what's consistent is her loyalty to her friend.
Okay. Yes. Now, where can off the shelf listeners get a copy of your books?
So I'm on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any place, any independent bookstore that you go to. They probably don't have it on the shelf, but you can ask them and they can get it to you quickly because they can just look on their computer and get it right there. Uh, you can find out more. My website is, as Denise kindly said, it's www.Karen E. Osborne, OSBORNE.com. And you can also see all of my interviews on my website. You can see all about my books. There are discussion questions for book clubs. I love book clubs, always willing to visit and speak to a book club. Happy to do that. Have materials for book clubs to make it easier for them to have really rich conversations. And invite me. Just invite
Okay.
me.
Now, do you have any upcoming speaking engagements? You've got an event this afternoon, in person event. You're in New York next week. Do you have any upcoming speaking engagements that off the shelf listeners could support you at?
Yeah, so the speaking engagement, the Harrison Public Library in Harrison, New York, which is in Westchester County, just north of New York City. So Connecticut, New York peeps. I'm speaking there at 7 p.m. at the Harrison Book Library, Public Library, and then in January, uh, I am speaking at in the last scene in Justice for Emerson. Jax is ordering a cake from a local catering company. And so I contacted them, and they are in Chappaqua, New York,
Oh,
and
wow.
they are hosting me in their little
Oh,
shop,
my
and
gosh.
they're going to make a special cake, like the cake I described in the book. And so it's going to be like a talk and come have cake and tea with Karen.
Awesome. Oh my God. We were talking about ways to market your books. I love that creative idea. That is
Yeah,
very
finding little.
creative and good for you. And I hope that house is packed and you got to sign and sign and sign copies of
Thank you.
Justice.
And I have
Yes.
an events page on my website, so you can always see what podcasts I'm going to be on and where else I'm speaking and presenting. And I could add your event.
Yes, please do. Please do. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Karen. What a joy we've had. Karen was on to our listeners in January, and it's a pleasure to have her back here when she finished Justice for Emerson, which I just loved learning about the characters and then the sequel to Getting It Right as well. Very, very intriguing and interesting. Karen E. Osborne. What a pleasure. She's been writing since she was a kid, even operating her own company with her husband, the Osborne Consulting and Training Firm, and now she's busy traveling and doing lots of other things. Books she has written are again Getting It Right, Tangled Lies, Reckonings, True Grace, and her latest book on the market now, Justice for Emerson, which we talked about in depth here on today's show. And again, I encourage you to check out Karen E. Osborne, her website, Karen E. Osborne, KarenEosborne.com. Oh, what a pleasure. And hopefully you go out and get a copy of Justice for Emerson. Those characters sound intriguing, don't they, off the shelf listeners? Thank you, Karen, for being here with us on Off the Shelf today. And as I always tell you, our listeners, you are just amazing. You are absolutely incredible. Please go out and create a wonderful day for yourself today. Karen, I'll shoot you an email when the show finishes streaming. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye
Thank
for now.
you. Bye.